Also, within the next few days, we will be sending out our newsletter. Now, just again, so you know, we have within the company a magazine. The magazine is called International Coaching News. That's a full color, glossy magazine. It comes out once every 3 months. But we do it, and that's over 100 pages every time. And it's with adverts, with editorials, dozens of articles. It's a huge project to publish that every 3 months. We have a whole team working on that. But we also do a short 2-page newsletter about every 5 or 6 weeks. And the newsletter is just bullet points, what we're doing, what's happening in the company, what we're working on, any exciting news. So that comes out every 5 or 6 weeks. The next one will be launched probably within the next 48 hours, Valley. Yeah. And you'll get a copy. This is a great, I would call it, awareness raising tool. So you can send it to people to say, hi, have you seen what we're up to? Have you seen our latest newsletter? Oh, by the way, look at page 2 of the newsletter. You might see this. So it's a great tool to help you to get people communicating. And everything is about, we'll talk about sales, but if you look at a sale, and a sale being the end of the road, before that, you have to build a relationship. And before that, you have to communicate. So it all starts with a communication. And I don't mean one way, a two-way. So you send out information and you get a response. Now you are in communication. Once you get a response, you can start to build a relationship. And once you start to build a relationship and people get to know who you are, they like you, they trust you, then a sale will come after that. But no one is ever going to buy from you if they don't like you. I mean, I think we all know that, right? No one will buy from you if they don't trust you. It's obvious. So it's important to build relationships. Now let's talk about sales, just sales in general. Let's talk about wealth. All over the world, going back 1,000 years, where has wealth been created? And there's only one answer, and that is through business. The only way to create wealth is running a business. If you think about it, all the wealthy men and women that either you see on television, or you read about in the papers, or you read about from history, where did they get their wealth? From business. Even if someone inherited it from their parents, so they inherited millions, where did the parents get it? From building a business, a corporation. Even royalty, the kings and queens and the emperors and moguls, where did they get it? Running a business. They owned vast amounts of land. They had tenants working for them, growing crops, selling crops. They charged rental income from the people who lived on their land. That's a business. So the only way of creating wealth in the whole world is having a business. Now, let's look at a business. What or who are the most important people in any business? So let me give you a little example. Going back a few years, I was coaching the CEO of a multinational organization. You might have heard of it, a little company called Coca-Cola. Probably not heard of it, okay? And I was coaching the CEO, and he invited me to attend one of their big quarterly board meetings. And at the board meeting were the C-suite. Do you understand what I mean by C-suite? The chief executive officers, the chief of finance, chief of logistics, chief of marketing, chief of legal, chief of accounting. Have you heard the expressions, the C-suite before, right? The absolute upper top level directors, not just directors, the top. So we're all sitting around this boardroom, beautiful big table, cost a fortune, lovely big boardroom. And he introduced me, and then they got on with their meeting. And they were getting on with the meeting. And I was just sitting there taking notes and watching and observing. And after about an hour, the CEO turned to me and he said, "Gerard, do you have any observations to make?" And I said, "Well, I'm a bit curious. I have a question." Now, I was doing this deliberately. I was playing with them. I knew the answer. So I said, "Ladies and gentlemen, I'm just a bit curious. You all represent different divisions of this worldwide organization. Can you please tell me which is the most important division?" And instantly, the head of manufacturing said, "Well, it's obvious, it's manufacturing. Because without a product, you have no company. Without a product to sell, you have no company or no business." And I said, "Oh, that's interesting. That's interesting." And then the head of logistics said, "No, no, no." He said, "Product means nothing. Without the logistics and the transportation and the warehousing and the trucks and the getting the product to the market, getting it to the shops, getting it to the dealership, getting it to the distributors. Without that, you have no business. Doesn't matter if you have a product, it's only going to sit in a warehouse. So without distribution, no business. We are the most important." And then the head of accounting said, "You're all wrong. It's the accountants that look after a business. We deal with the figures, the finance. We keep the business in profit so we can pay our bills. We can make profit. We can reinvest. Without the finance department, the business would go under. We are the most important." And then head of HR said, "You're all wrong. The most important thing in a business are the people. We are the human resource department. We look after the people. We take care of the men and women who work in the company. Without the men and women being looked after, there is no business." And I was saying, "Oh, that's interesting. That's interesting." And I let them all go around. And of course, every one of them thought that their division was the most important. And then the CEO said, "So, Gerard, what do you think?" I said, "Well, I think you're all wrong." And they didn't like that because these men and women at that position didn't like being talked to directly. And me, I couldn't care less because it doesn't bother me. I don't work for them. So I said, "You're all wrong. You're all coming from a place of ego. You're all coming from a place where you want to feel significant, that you are important." I said, "The truth is, the most important department in this company is sales." I said, "Not just this company, every company in the world. The most important part is sales. It doesn't matter about your product, doesn't matter about your logistics, your finance, your legal. Without someone to get out there and market and sell the product, you all have nothing. In fact, the people who are paid to clean the toilets, if the company doesn't make sales, they're out of work. You're all out of work." And they didn't like it, but they accepted it. And I'm just sharing this with you, guys and girls, because here in Noble Manhattan, we've been going for 25 years. We're one of the world's largest coach training companies in the whole planet. We've trained thousands and thousands of men and women. We have offices in dozens of countries. But you are the most important people in this company. You people here in this meeting with me and Vali are the most important. You really are. And you need to realize that. And you also need to realize that you have the opportunity to create wealth for yourself. Absolute wealth. Yeah. So let me tell you a little bit about my background. When I left the Royal Marines, I did 9 years in the military. I left and I went into sales. Not in this industry, in the insurance and finance. So I joined right at the bottom, no salary, nothing at all, commission only, and doing what we called cold calling. And you're all familiar with what we mean by that, right? And in those days, it was knocking on doors and picking up the phone, and didn't have so much email and social media back then. It was literally phone or physically knocking on doors. I made no money at all for 3 months. Literally nothing. I was broke. I couldn't put food on the table. And then it turned around and I got into the swing of it. I started to learn the methods, the techniques, the words to use and the words not to use. That's important, what not to say. And I learned how to build relationships and I started to grow. And I made my first million, this is UK million, within 3 years. All right, within 3 years in sales, because I learned the importance of activity. I learned the importance of numbers. I also learned one or two things. Success is easy to do. It's also easy not to do. What does that mean? Okay, let me give you a few examples. Imagine, now, I don't know if any of you smoke. I don't, but I'm sure you all do know people that smoke, right? Smoke cigarettes. So I'll just use that as an example. Is it easy to smoke a cigarette if you want one? Of course it is. Is it easy not to? If you have the right mindset, yes, it is. Easy to do, easy not to do. So here's a question. If you've never smoked in your life, ever, and you have one cigarette, will you instantly die of lung cancer? No, of course not. But we would call that a serious error in judgment. Because if you do have one cigarette and then you repeat that on a daily basis and you compound it over the days, weeks, and months of your life, it will take you out of this life. So we would call that a serious error in judgment. Is it easy to do? Of course it is. Is it easy not to do? Absolutely. Another simple example. You know, you've all heard of McDonald's. I'm sure you all have a McDonald's somewhere near you in your city or town. Yeah. So let's say you're walking downtown and you're feeling hungry and you go into McDonald's and have a juicy Big Mac. Is it easy to do if you're feeling hungry? Of course it is. Is it also easy to make a different decision and have something different? Of course it is. If you eat one Big Mac, will you instantly have a heart attack and die? No, it doesn't work like that. But if you have a Big Mac and you repeat that on a regular basis and you compound it over the days, weeks, and months of your life, it will take you out of this life. Absolutely. So if you're feeling hungry, is it easy to have a Big Mac? Of course it is. Is it also easy not to? Yes, it is. So when I was doing sales, I realized the importance of what I call pain and discipline. And I used to make 3 appointments a day, not initial phone calls, not information being sent out, that would all have to happen beforehand. You know, and to make one appointment, you might have had to have information going to 10 people. To get 10 people to agree to accept information, you might have had to have called 20 or 25 and so on. So there was a process before. But I made a commitment that I would never go to bed at night until I had made 3 actual appointments. This is an appointment for me to go to that person's house and see them in their own house and make a presentation. Do you understand what I mean about that? I used to make a presentation about the benefits of life insurance and pensions and savings and so on. And I used to be in someone's house maybe an hour doing my presentation, and then it would lead to a sale or not. But I knew my numbers. For every 3 presentations, I'd get 2 sales. Well, not at the beginning. We'll come to that. So I started to make a commitment that I would not go to bed until I had made 3 firm appointments with prospects. And it might be for next week, the week after, but they were in my diary. And that's when my life changed around and my success changed. And I started to work on my ratios, my numbers, and I started to realize, how many people do I have to phone before one person says, yeah, you can send me some info? And then how many people do I have to follow up before they say, yeah, you can come and see me? And I realized something many years ago. Life is about pain, or part of it. You and I will all have to pay the price. What price do we have to pay? We have a choice. You and I will have to pay a price. We either pay the price of discipline or the price of regret. The price of discipline or the price of regret. Discipline weighs ounces, regret weighs kilograms and tons. How often have you heard people say in your life the 2 saddest words in the world? If only. How often have you heard people say this? Maybe grandparents or older relatives, and people say, oh, if only. If only I'd stayed longer in school when I was younger. If only I'd moved abroad. If only I had taken that job when it was offered to me. If only I had done this. Have you ever heard people say that? If only? Yeah. And usually when they say it, it's too late. Very sad. So you and I, we have to pay a price. Either the price of discipline or the price of regret. Discipline has that much pain. Regret has that much pain. So I made a commitment to myself many years ago that I would rather pay the price of discipline instead of the price of regret. And what helped me was working out my ratios, working out my figures. Now, you can't really start to work out your ratios until you have a lot of numbers. If you've only ever contacted 5 people, you can't work out your ratios. But if you're contacting 50 people a day, 50 a day, 50 a day, 50 a day, 50 a day, after a week or two, suddenly you begin to know the type of response you get, the numbers of response, the good response, the bad response, how many to follow up on. Now you can work out your figures. And I find that personally, and we're all different, I find that very motivating, because then I'm able to know, well, X amount of phone calls leads to 1 sale. I'll just make that many phone calls or send that many emails or contact that many people on LinkedIn or Google, and it'll work out. The technique I showed you, ladies and gentlemen, about a week ago, where you use Google, you find someone's website, and you make a comment on it. Do you all remember that? Yeah. I shared it with another team we have. We have a division within Noble Manhattan called the Alpha Group. Been going for 10 years, very successful. And they have a marketing team, about 8 people. And I shared it with them last week. And one of them, John, gave it a title. He called it Gerard's Law. So I thought that was quite funny. He said, we'll call this Gerard's Law. And he immediately started to use it. And then he sent an email to the rest of the team and a Word document, which I sent on to you earlier today. Did any of you see that? Did any? Yeah. And he used my script for the first email, and then for the follow-up, he changed it a little bit, made it more personal to that individual. And he is having very good success. So are two other people, a gentleman called Bujar and a lady from Kenya called Caroline. Now it's interesting. There were 8 people in the team, the Alpha Group sales team, 8. I shared it with all 8. We had a meeting. I went through it. They all knew about it. I sent the email. I gave them the script. Instantly, 3 of them started using it. And 8 of them thought, I'll get around to it. Yeah, that's a good idea. I'll think about it. I might use that tomorrow or the next day. We'll see. It's interesting. It's like giving someone the key to a gold mine, and they say, yeah, thank you, I'll go up there tomorrow or the next day. I'll have a look next week. If I have time, I'll go to the gold mine. Maybe I don't have time because I'm too busy talking to friends. And 3 people get their shovel, get the key, go up and open the gold mine and start mining gold instantly. Why is that? Why is that the case with human beings? When you give someone a method, a technique, showing them how to do it, the script, the wording, it's so simple. You can sit there drinking a cup of coffee on your laptop. You can do it. Why does one small group immediately do it and keep doing it and get good results? And now they're getting sales. And then another group say, yeah, I'll get around to it. Well, I used to ask myself this question years ago, because I've built huge sales teams over the years. And I keep coming back to the 80-20 rule. Has anyone heard of the 80-20 rule? Yeah, you can look it up on Google. The 80-20 rule, invented by Alfredo Placebo in 1910. Alfredo Pareto. He was an Italian. He was a scientist. And he came up with the 80-20 rule. And it works in everything in life. Everything in life. 80% of the value of what you get comes from 20% of what you do. If you have a sales team, doesn't matter in any industry, in any product, anywhere in the world, 80% of the results come from 20% of the team. And it happens again and again. And if you double the size of the team and you quadruple the size of the team, still 80% of the results come from 20% of the team. It's like a law of the universe. And that's why it's called the 80-20 rule, Alfredo Pareto. So there's 4 of you guys here on the sales team. Let's make sure that you're all in the 20% category, not the 80%. The 20% who are... I had a mentor many years ago, a guy called Bob Patmore. And Bob was the national sales manager for the insurance company I was in. And he used to come to our office once a week and give a talk. Very motivating guy. You can look him up on LinkedIn. His full name is Robert Patmore. Very motivating guy. And I remember he came, when I shortly joined the company, he came, did his talk. He was having a coffee afterwards and he said, anyone want to come and have a chat? And I said, yeah, I do. And I said, so Bob, how do I become successful? How do I become like you? And he said, well, I'm going to come here every week. I'm going to give a bit of a motivating talk. And he said, I'm going to give you an idea. He said, every week, I'll give you a tip or a technique or an idea that works. And there was about 20 of us in the office, yeah, or salespeople. Yeah? And he said, you look around. He said, the majority of those people, when I leave, he said, they'll say to each other, what a good idea. Didn't Bob give us a good idea? Let's go and have a coffee and talk about that. Let's have a meeting and discuss it. I tell you what, why don't we sleep on that and talk about it again tomorrow? And he said, and they'll do nothing. They'll talk about it, but they won't actually take action. He said, look around. He said, a tiny group of your office here will take action. And he used a phrase that I have used all of my life. He said, take heavy action on a good idea. If it's a good idea, take heavy action and you will get heavy results. You know? So that technique I gave you, we'll call it Gerard's law. There's no limit. On LinkedIn, there's a limit on how many you can contact. Google, no limit. You could literally contact 200 people a day if you wanted. But I suggest you set yourself a target. I suggest you put a stake in the sand where you make a commitment. Right? You make a commitment and you say, I commit to contacting X amount every day using this technique, no matter what. No matter how I'm feeling, tired, ill, no matter what's going on in my life, I will commit to contacting X amount every day using that technique. Some days it'll be good results, some days it'll be terrible results, but it doesn't matter. It's not on a daily basis. It's over time. So how many should you contact? I don't know. I'm not going to give you a figure, it's up to you. But literally using that, how long does it take to contact one person? Do the search, go to their website, send the mail, because you would have it cut and pasted, just cut and paste, change their name. 1 minute, 1.5 minutes, I don't know, something like that. So doing 50 in a day is child's play. But 50 in a day, it's 250 in a week. That's 1,000 in a month. 1,000 people you're reaching out to in a month on a personal way where we know you're going to get a high percentage response. My God, 1,000 a month, how many sales are sitting in that number? Quite a lot. Yeah. But then we come to the old other saying, SW, SW. Some will, some won't. Some will, some won't. And I never know why. It always confuses me because people get into sales because they're motivated. They want to do something. They want to build a future for themselves. They want to create a wonderful income, a safety, a security for them, their family, their children. And then some will and some won't. Why ask why? It's human nature, human nature. So, Vali, could you stop the recording?